Today, we're going to dive deep into what really separates the pros from the amateurs in Linux administration. And spoiler alert, it's not just about knowing the commands, it's a whole philosophy. And that's exactly what we're breaking down. So, think of this like we're building a pyramid. You can't just start at the top, right? We're going to start with the absolute base, the sysadmin mindset. Then we'll stack on the technical building blocks, OS and storage. After that, we get into architecture and automation. And finally, we'll place that capstone right on top, how to survive when things inevitably go wrong. Okay, let's just jump right in with a scenario. Imagine the worst. A critical system just dies. Your site is down. Customers are angry. Data? Who knows? So who do you need in that moment? The answer, and this is key, isn't just about who knows the most commands. It's about someone with a very specific way of thinking. And that way of thinking, well, that brings us straight to our first section, the sysadmin's mindset. Look, it's so much more than just what you type into a terminal. It's a whole philosophy, and honestly, most people get it completely wrong. First things first, we got to get this distinction clear. Are you an administrator or are you an engineer? See, an admin's job is all about stability, steady, ongoing support. Their whole world is about keeping things running. But an engineer, they're measured by how many projects they can push out the door. The skill sets are just night and day. It's why finding someone who's a true master of both is like finding a unicorn. Here's a way to think about it that really clicks. A surgeon, right? Their job is to make zero mistakes. One slip and it's a disaster. But IT in a business, it's a totally different ballgame. Your job isn't to avoid all mistakes. It's actually to maximize profit. And you do that by taking smart, calculated, math-based risks. And that leads to this. Well, this kind of mind-bending idea. What if that coveted 100% uptime isn't the badge of honor we all think it is? What if it's actually a red flag? A sign that you're playing it too safe, and in the process you're missing out on new tech that could really push the business forward. All because it comes with a tiny, acceptable bit of risk. Okay, so now that we've got that whole risk-taking mindset on the table, let's start laying down the actual technical foundation. And that, of course, begins with the absolute basics, the OS and your storage. When you're talking Linux, you've pretty much got your big three. You've got Debian, which is all about that pure open source philosophy. Then there's Red Hat, the enterprise giant, the one that comes with that big ticket commercial support. And then you have SUSE, which has a cool backstory. They actually started as a support company first and then built their own distro around it. So, the million-dollar question, which one do you pick? Honestly, there's a golden rule here, and it trumps everything else. The workload tells you what OS to use, not the other way around. It makes absolutely no sense to pick your distro before you know exactly what that system is supposed to do. All right, let's shift gears to storage. Rule number one. The only rule that really matters is durability. That's it. Protecting data from being lost or corrupted, that's the whole game. I mean, think about it. Who cares how fast your system is if the data is just gone, or worse, silently corrupted? It's all for nothing. And while we're talking storage, let's bust a quick myth. You hear people point to a big rack of drives and say, that's the SAN. No, that's not quite right. The SAN, the storage area network, is actually the network itself. It's the dedicated plumbing for all that storage traffic, not the big appliance at the end of the pipes. Okay, here's a piece of advice that will save you so much pain down the road. Use LVM. Always. That's logical volume management. It's basically this magic layer that sits over your physical disks. And what it gives you is flexibility. It lets you do things like resize volumes on the fly, stuff that would be an absolute nightmare otherwise. It's your get-out-of-jail-free card for future problems you don't even know you have yet. All right, so we've got our OS picked out, our storage is solid, we have the building blocks. Now, how do we put them all together and manage them without going insane, especially at scale? Well, that's where architecture and automation become your best friends. And here's a hot take, a really bold mandate. Virtualize every single workload, no exceptions. It's a direct shot at the classic excuse, oh, but my workload is special. The argument is that the wins you get from virtualization, the flexibility, the easier management, are just so huge that it has to be the default every single time. And then there's the cloud. Oh boy, this word has been stretched and abused to mean just about anything, hasn't it? It's gotten so meaningless that, as one great quote puts it, the only thing you can be sure of when someone says cloud is that they don't actually mean cloud. So yeah, Next time you hear it, you should probably ask, okay, what do you actually mean? So how do you manage all this stuff efficiently? Automation, automation, automation. And the guiding principle is really simple. GUIs, those point-and-click interfaces, they're fantastic for end users. But for an admin, the command line is where it's at. The CLI is king. Why? 3 words: scriptable, repeatable, and standardized. You just can't do that with a mouse. And that love for the command line leads us to the real magic: infrastructure as code. Specifically, the declarative model. This is a total game changer. Instead of writing a script with step-by-step instructions, you just write a file that describes the end state you want. You declare, I want a web server configured like this, and the tools figure out how to make it happen. It's incredible. So we've designed this beautiful automated system. It's perfect. Except it's not, because things will break, things will go wrong, and that brings us to the top of our pyramid: surviving disasters. Because let's be real, in this line of work, failure isn't an if, it's a when. Before we go any further, we have to get 2 words straight: backup and archive. A backup is a copy of data that's still live and active. An archive is a copy of data where the original is gone. Now that might seem like a tiny difference, but it's absolutely critical. The second you delete the source data, your backup instantly transforms into an archive, and the rules can completely change. Okay, so you've probably seen marketing for agentless backups, right? Especially for VMs. It sounds amazing. No extra software to install, no mess. But is it really agentless? What's actually going on under the hood? Well, the secret's out. No, there's no such thing. Agentless backups just use agents that are already there, built right into the OS or the hypervisor, things like VMware tools. So make no mistake, an agent is still doing all the heavy lifting to make sure you get a clean copy. The marketing just hides it from you. Okay, the alarm bells are ringing. You're in a full-blown outage. The #1 enemy is chaos. You need a playbook. Step 1, assess what's actually broken. Step 2, communicate. Pick one person to be the spokesperson. Step 3, shield the fixers. Protect the people actually solving the problem from distractions. And step 4, document everything. That timeline will be pure gold later. And look at that, we're right back where we started. This brings the whole philosophy full circle. See, disaster recovery isn't about trying to build a system that can never, ever fail. That's a fantasy, and an incredibly expensive one. Sometimes, the cost of preventing a disaster is actually way higher than the cost of just recovering from it. It all comes back to that core idea: managing smart, calculated, math-based risks. So, I want to leave you with this one final provocative thought. Take a look at your own systems. If they never, ever fail, if you have that perfect 100% uptime, are you really a hero? Are you taking the smart risks that actually help the business grow? Or could you be holding it back by being too risk-averse at a cost you haven't even considered?